soul got the same on my neck these beats.
Welcome to Better Than Ever Live, wherever you're watching or wherever you're listening. I hope you're making today your masterpiece. I hope you make the rest of the day or make this weekend your masterpiece. In this live stream, we're going to talk about arthritis and osteoarthritis and potentially really exciting new development in the treatment of arthritis and osteoarthritis, and that is exosomes. We're going to talk about what exosomes are, where they might come from, how they might work in osteoarthritis, and how effective they've been in early studies. And we have some interesting, maybe even exciting new health stories to talk about. I'm Dr. David Geier, double board certified orthopedic surgeon, sports medicine specialist, and media medical expert. I help you feel and perform your best regardless of age, injury, or medical history. And please understand, in this live stream, like all of them, I'm not giving you medical advice. Whether it's exosomes or anything else, this is meant for general information and educational purposes only. If you have comments that you want to share, hey Noof, it's good to see you. If I'm saying that wrong, please tell me sometime. I think I've probably butchered that. But anyway, if you have comments about exosomes, you have comments about osteoarthritis, I'll probably get to those at the end of the discussion I have. If it's about any of the studies that we're talking about kind of on the front end, definitely share those and I will comment on those as we go. Also, really quickly, I wanted to give a quick, I hate the term shout out because I feel too old to say that, honestly, but some advanced praise and admiration for the Christ Our King Stella Maris Crusaderettes dance team. I am their team doctor and they should be on their way now, actually, down to Orlando, Florida. They're defending their national championship from last year. Hopefully win that and more in more divisions this year. Really proud of them. They work really hard. Nothing but admiration, and I know they're going to do great this weekend, so I hope they kill it. All right, first thing we want to talk about. Dance kind of reminds me of this, actually. We're going to talk about bone and joint pain. Our first study was published in PLOS ONE looking at what you can do to avoid bone and joint pain later in life. And maybe that would not be 20 or 30 hours of dance team practice every week, but that's a whole other story. If you want to avoid later knee pain, later hip pain, foot pain, ankle pain, whatever it is, a new study says that you should work hard in a workout at least once each week. The way they figured this out, researchers at the University of Portsmouth followed over 6,000 adults over the age of 50, and they followed them for more than 10 years. And the only thing that they found that led to a lower risk of musculoskeletal pain was vigorous activity, running, swimming, tennis, something that really worked you hard. That was associated with a lower risk of later bone and joint pain. What was interesting, though, is that moderate exercise, like going for long walks or just being active, sort of light daily activity, household chores, vacuuming, gardening, did not have that effect. It did not reduce the risk of future musculoskeletal pain. But here's the thing, even with vigorous exercise, according to their data, you have to do that on a regular basis, at least once a week, to really see the benefits of less hip or knee or foot pain or whatever it is. Now, what would be interesting, and this is a retrospective study, it's really, and we've talked about this before, it's really hard to do a prospective study, meaning you take the people from the beginning and then look forward, because just for instance, you can't say, all right, you 1,000 people are not going to exercise. This 1,000 people, you have to exercise once a week. That you just can't make people do that. It's the same problem with nutrition studies. You can't make one group of people eat red meat for every meal and another group not, and see what happens in 20 years. That's not ethical. Same type of thing here. So all you can really show is an association, not a cause and effect. Clearly, the more you exercise, that is associated with lower risk of bone and joint pain. That's a good thing. But what I would like to know is, what is it about the vigorous activity? Meaning, so tennis is sort of what I would call high intensity interval training. You're running a lot for a point, then you rest a little bit, and then you go again. Whereas swimming tends to be more steady state, but still a pretty good workout. But I would want to know, are those HIIT training things that have become so popular, these short, intense bursts of exercise for 60 seconds, and then you go slow for 2 minutes or 3 minutes, and you do that for a shorter overall workout. Is that better than maybe a longer workout that's more steady state, but maybe not as intense in terms of heart rate and just general metabolic changes? I don't know. I suspect that the HIIT training probably has the same benefits. You just have to be pretty darn intense as you do that. So, all right, another one. I'm going to be the bearer of bad news here, quite honestly. I've talked on this Better Than Ever live stream several times that the old myth of a glass of wine every night is good for your health, it's good for your heart, it just doesn't appear to be true. We talked a few weeks ago about a study that showed that a lot of that was based on research that was very, very flawed. Now we go a step further. There's a new study in the Journal of Clinical Nutrition that shows having even one alcoholic drink a day can negatively impact your health. These researchers did find, and I know the wine people out there are going to say, oh no, it's good for your heart. They actually did, wine drinkers, if they drank small amounts, did have a decreased risk of coronary artery disease, which is good, right? But they had a higher risk of other cardiovascular events, heart attacks, strokes, and heart failure. I get it. That myth has been out there for so long. I still suspect it was largely perpetuated or promoted by the wine industry as a way to sell more wine, honestly. But that's been out there for years and years and years. Those studies that showed that people that don't drink have a higher risk of death, those studies didn't take into account if they were smokers, if they were recovering alcoholics that drank way too much for years, and all sorts of other factors that when you controlled for all of that, they didn't have a higher risk of death than the people that drank. And I feel like that's something that we're going to hear more about over the next few months is this question of, is alcohol actually good for you? Now, I'm not going to tell you, just every now and then if you want to have a glass of wine, by all means do it. Just make sure that you're choosing to do it and it's not become a habit or something your body has become accustomed to. And then don't just hang it on the excuse that it's good for you, because more and more evidence is showing that it's just not. All right, that's the last I've got as far as being a downer. Let's talk about two things that are good, two types of diets and dietary strategies that might help you live longer. We're going to do a Better Than Ever show in our main topic. We're going to talk about mTOR and mTOR inhibitors, but that'll come down the road. But just real briefly, mTOR is a protein kinase. It's thought to be a modulator of aging and age-related diseases, mammalian target of rapamycin. Why rapamycin is thought to be the medication that's sort of the fountain of youth. Again, there's a lot of debate about that. But finding ways to inhibit mTOR has become sort of an exciting area of research as a way to extend human lifespan. Well, there was a new study published in the National Library of Health, and they found that 2 dietary strategies might be good for inhibiting mTOR, and in theory, helping you add years to your life. One, and just mentally kind of think, all right, which types of diets would that be? One that they found would be the ketogenic diet, or keto, which is surprising. I know if you watch this show, you're probably thinking, oh, it's going to be the Mediterranean diet. No, they found that keto actually helps inhibit mTOR. That's the high fat, moderate protein, very low carb food plan. That, at least in theory, extends life. But the other one's kind of interesting. Intermittent fasting, eating all of your food in a narrow window of time for the day. So you fast for 16 hours, you eat your 2 meals or maybe 3 meals if you can do it in 8 hours, or in a 6-hour window, something like that. Or alternate day fasting, where you eat very low amounts of calories, like 400 or 500 calories one day, and then normal feeding the next day, then back to 400. Those intermittent fasting strategies, alternate day fasting type strategies, appear to increase longevity. So, for what that's worth, that is kind of what we're thinking about. Belinda, I'll answer some of that at the end, but I have some thoughts because we're going to talk a little bit about inflammation, and I'll try to answer your question as best I can. I can't, again, give medical advice, but I'll give you at least a little bit of thoughts. All right, let's talk about osteoarthritis, because that's a big deal in this country. We've been doing joint replacement surgeries now for decades. It's a huge, huge industry in the healthcare in this country, at one of the huge areas of healthcare costs. And the reason that joint replacement surgeons really tell patients it's the only option is because they still tell people that osteoarthritis is a wear and tear process and not a disease. They say that all that running, all that playing sports, or some injury you suffered took a toll on your knee. Or maybe it's just running or being a mechanic or carpenter or something that puts a lot of demand on your hips and knees over a long period of time. All of that wear and tear or the injury damages the cartilage in your hip and knee and damages the bone under the cartilage. Again, it gets to that whole, and I've talked about this recently, the tread on a tire analogy. They tell you that the tread is going thin, which is the articular cartilage on the end of the bones, that you have basically a bald spot, and there's nothing you can do other than to replace that damaged bone and cartilage with metal and plastic. But you have to understand, osteoarthritis is a disease. It's a low-grade chronic inflammatory state throughout your body, not just in one joint, but throughout your body. When you suffer an injury, your body makes these proteins, releases proteins called cytokines that go to the site of injury, knee, hip, wherever. And there's pro-inflammatory and anti-inflammatory cytokines, but the pro-inflammatory ones, the damaging ones, things like interleukin-1 beta, tumor necrosis factor alpha, interleukin-6, when you have a lot of those pro-inflammatory cytokines, they cause tissue damage at whatever part of the body they go to, again, like the hip or the knee. And if you're in a chronic inflammatory state, and that can be eating a poor diet for a long period of time, it could be chronic stress, it could be being sedentary for years and years, it could have some disease process that might affect your immune system, but you create this situation where those pro-inflammatory cytokines recruit these degradative enzymes that just destroy and degrade the articular cartilage. That creates this debris of cells and proteins that your body then creates an immune response to fight, which leads to more pro-inflammatory cytokines, more degradative enzymes, and all of a sudden you're in this ongoing cycle of joint destruction. So the idea behind stem cells, which I know a lot of people have heard about stem cells for arthritis, that's been sort of the latest, greatest thing for years. The theory was that they can differentiate into different types of cells, cartilage cells, bone cells, and yes, we're still early in the research, but the studies, at least for now, show that stem cells do slow pain and inflammation in osteoarthritis, but they don't seem to show the development or the creation or the return of the cartilage and bone the way it was before all that degeneration started to happen. Now, stem cells might slow down that pro-inflammatory process. They might downregulate the inflammatory signals that lead to the degradation of articular cartilage, and that, in theory, they might help repair cartilage through growth factors. But there's a lot of problems with stem cells and their ability to heal cartilage and protect an arthritic joint. Creating an environment in the joint for the stem cells to survive has been a challenge. Getting stem cells from young people and not older donors has been a problem in terms of just how effective they are. And that has led people to exosomes. And exosomes, in case you're wondering what those are extracellular vesicles inside one of the little, if you remember high school biology, they're inside the cell, they're released by the cell, and they're involved in cell-to-cell communication. They release lipids, nucleic acids like DNA, RNA, mRNA, things like that, and proteins. And all those proteins and lipids and nucleic acids that are released play a role in communication between the cells and the immune response to the cell. Stem cells work by releasing their exosomes or extracellular vesicles. The problem in the US is that you have to do a surgery to get the stem cells, usually from your hip, and there aren't that many stem cells in it, so you're not getting that much exosome. So instead, like we're going to talk about, you can just inject exosomes. All right, so there have been a number of studies, and again, this is all very recent, but a number of studies that show that these stem cell-derived exosomes are involved in cell migration, cell proliferation, differentiation, and maintaining the extracellular matrix that holds the cartilage together. They help repair and regenerate cartilage by regulating that immune response, by diminishing cell death and increasing cell growth or proliferation. They, in theory, really work on, and especially work on, the chondrocytes or the cartilage precursor cells. So let's talk about some of the early studies, because again, this is very, very early. But one of the early studies looked at exosomes for arthritis in rats and showed that yes, exosomes do block some of that cartilage damage. They reduce what's called osteophytes, or the bone spurs you hear people talk about. They prevented the development of those by limiting pro-inflammatory M1 macrophages, promoting anti-inflammatory M2 macrophages. But they also blocked those pro-inflammatory cytokines, the interleukin-1 beta, the interleukin-6, the tumor necrosis factor alpha, and increased the anti-inflammatory cytokines. Another rat study, exosomes effectively promoted cartilage repair. They maintained that extracellular matrix that holds the cartilage together. And more importantly, they decreased knee pain in the arthritic rats. So one of the great things about exosomes, I sort of briefly mentioned this, is that they're a potential advancement to help us regenerate cartilage. But again, you can get them not by harvesting them from your hip or somewhere else in your body, but you can get them from embryonic stem cells like amniotic fluid and umbilical stem cells. One study looked at these in humans with osteoarthritis in the knee, injecting those types of stem cells, and they noticed that the damage to the cartilage and the bone under the cartilage was mostly reversed at 6 weeks and almost completely restored at 12 weeks. So these, again, this is early, but embryonic mesenchymal stem cells could actually be what we've been looking for to actually repair cartilage and osteoarthritis. Again, what most people here in the US, the few people that are doing this, use amniotic fluid stem cells to get their exosomes. Another study that looked at amniotic fluid stem cells showed that in people with osteoarthritis, they had better pain tolerance, less pain basically, and it almost completely restored the articular cartilage, not just filling the pothole, so to speak, but actually making that surface smooth again, which is a huge, huge advance. Exosomes from umbilical stem cells in another study increased that proliferation of the chondrocytes, the cartilage precursor cells, maintained the extracellular matrix, and inhibited the chondrocytes, the cartilage cells, from dying. So again, this is another study that the researchers concluded that this might be an effective treatment. If you inject exosomes into a human arthritic joint, it can repair cartilage defects. Now, I've said this in all of these videos, these live streams where I talk about a modern medicine treatment. I know sometimes I talk about keto or sleep or things like that, but sometimes I talk about these modern medicine things like peptides that we've talked about, BPC 157 and others. Exosomes are not currently approved by the FDA for osteoarthritis. And I am not giving you medical advice. This, again, is meant for general information and educational purposes only. So what's sort of the bottom line? All these studies, all this sort of basic science, what does all this mean? Well, exosomes do appear to carry out a lot of different function in our cells and in our bodies, repairing tissue injuries, regulating our immune response, and most importantly, stopping that inflammation. But this is early research, very early. This is only within the last few years. But it does look like exosomes might actually protect an arthritic joint by promoting cartilage repair, stopping the inflammation of the joint lining around the damaged bone and cartilage, and actually helping that subchondral bone to heal. So if you have hip arthritis, if you have knee arthritis, and you want to potentially avoid or maybe delay a joint replacement, you could talk to your doctor about whether exosomes might be an option, injecting exosomes into your knee, whether that might be an option for you. I'm not saying it is. I'm just putting it out there because this is going to be something you're going to hear about a whole lot in the next 3-4 years. I don't know, but I predict this will take over the discussion of stem cells that you see advertised all over the place. This is going to be the next best thing, and without a surgical procedure. I think you'll start to see a lot of people do it. There already are surgeons and primary care doctors getting into this. All right, let's see. Differences between exosomes and microvesicles. I'm not 100% sure the term microvesicles. These essentially are extracellular vesicles. They were initially thought to be how cells get rid of waste. These little vesicles that then get dumped into the rest of the body and the fluid around the cells, but they actually play a large role in communication. So if you hear exosomes, you hear extracellular vesicles, people essentially talking about the same thing. All right, Belinda, I told you I would answer yours, and she is in South Texas. Great to hear. I love Texas. It's such a great place. Fractured kneecap. Thing I'm picking about squat. Yeah, the thing about the kneecap, the patella, is you've got to get the strength of the muscles around your knee back, especially the quads, but also the hip flexors, the hip abductors, things like that. So I'm a big fan of physical therapy, showing you exercises to do that, and then taking those to the gym and doing them. That's very important. But yes, early on, I don't want you to be non-weight-bearing exercise for long if I was treating you, but swimming is definitely good because there's no impact. Running in water can be very helpful. Lifting weights, and maybe elliptical. I think the elliptical is not a great exercise generally because it's not that hard, but there's very little weight bearing in that. And then once your kneecap, and avoiding Stairmasters and things that put a lot of stress on your kneecap is typically what you do. She's drinking, drinking organic tart cherry juice, helps with inflammation. I'm a big fan of cherry juice. The best thing about those of you that she does it instead of a glass of wine, the great thing about the tart cherry juice, I learned this from Nick Littlehales, the world's sleep sport coach. He works with Manchester United and Real Madrid and all these national Olympic teams in various sports. He's in England. He told me that he's a big fan. I remember asking him if he liked melatonin for people, and he generally didn't. But tart cherry juice is very good at sort of helping your body regulate its melatonin that it already makes, and is a very good sleep aid. I do not like cherry flavored anything, so I have not tried it, but I'm curious, Belinda, if that has worked for you, for what that's worth. Noof says, pain injections also given to the cells. Not 100% sure what that means, but that's good. Which is better, keto or paleo? So they're a little bit similar in the sense that paleo tries to achieve the same purpose, meaning try to cut carbs, processed foods, especially anything with sugar, down to very low. Basically, from the little I know about paleo, it's mostly green vegetables and meat. The only thing I'll say from my friends that have done paleo is they tend to eat more meat than a ketogenic diet allows. The problem with protein in general is if you eat a lot of it, you're trying to be keto, keep your carbs really, really low, but you eat a lot of protein, and this would be true with plant or animal protein, but especially meat proteins, your body is going to eventually break that down into glucose, and then it sort of defeats the purpose of the ketogenic diet. With all of these diets, it really depends on what you're going after. I talked about keto with longevity, but that's only one thing to look at. I mean, the Mediterranean diet's a very anti-inflammatory diet, so for a lot of disease processes involved in inflammation, that might be better. And not one diet's better for everybody. So people that know me will tell you I change diets periodically for a lot of reasons, health reasons, and just want to try what's sustainable and things like that. And I feel like that's a good strategy to go just generally, is to try different things. All right, that is all I've got for you today. Kind of a short show. I hope that was interesting for you as in terms of exosomes. I know that's something that most people have not heard of. If you want to read the studies I talked about, those should be in the description below this video. If you like videos like this, if you like live streams like this about bone and joint injuries, about health and wellness, healing, all that kind of thing, so that you can feel and perform your best regardless of age, injury, or medical history, subscribe to this channel. Click the bell to be notified when I release a new video, or like today, when I am on live. And if you want to come see me as a patient, you have an orthopedic injury, tendon, ligament, bone, cartilage, whatever, and you want to see somebody that knows about these types of injuries and has been treating them for a long, long time, and athletes and active people, I'd love to help. Again, double board certified orthopedic surgeon and sports medicine specialist, and I'll talk to you about all your options, not just surgery and cortisone shots and physical therapy. My website, drdavidgeier.com, it should be listed below this, and you can go to the contact page and request an appointment to see me. That's all I've got for you. Thank you so much for watching. Again, my name's Dr. David Geier. I am very, very excited to do this with you a couple times a week, and I look forward every single time to helping you feel and perform better than ever.